eminent speakers of the day. Mr. Julian Matthews, founder, Top Tigers, Dr. Anish Andheria, President and CEO, Wildlife Conservation Trust, Srimati Ritu Makhija ma'am, Director Sustainability, Top Tigers, India, and Sri Atul Devkar, MFS, Assistant Conservator of Forest, Pench Tiger Reserve, Maharashtra, and to all our webinar attendees watching us today. Protecting biological diversity and natural heritage is one of the important pillars in the national strategy for sustainable tourism. It is an important part of environmental sustainability. There is need to support the conservation of natural areas, habitats, and wildlife, and minimize damage to them. This is an area where the positive and negative impacts of tourism can be felt more strongly. All ecosystems, whether mountains, deserts, rainforest, wetlands, or inland waters, have their own special sensitivities, which need to be considered when planned for tourism activities. While tourism may be a cause of loss of biodiversity, income from tourism has proved to be critical important component for funding for conservation in many national parks, reserves, and other protected areas. Sustainable and responsible tourism can provide both resources for conservation and also ensure that it doesn't harm biodiversity. As today, we will be discussing on the topic Sustainable Tourism, a tool for tiger conservation. Tiger conservation is the set of efforts and strategies aimed at protecting wild tiger population from the threats that endanger their survival. Tigers are considered to be one of the most iconic and charismatic species on the planet. But they are also one of the most endangered. It is also one of the most magnificent and iconic animals on the planet. They are an apex predator, symbolizing power, strength, and grace. However, tigers are also one of the most endangered species in the world, with only around 3,900 individuals left in the wild. Despite significant conservation efforts, the primary threat to tigers remain habitat loss, poaching, and illegal wildlife threat. Tourism has emerged as a potential powerful tool for tiger conservation, which is now particularly referred to as tiger tourism. But it also has the potential to create new challenges and risks. Therefore, our esteemed speakers will throw a light on how sustainable tourism can be a tool for tiger conservation. Today's webinar will be having two parts. First, we will be focusing on the viewpoint of our speakers. Second will be the Q&A session. So let's start and welcome our first speaker, Mr. Julian Matthews. Mr. Matthews founded Top Tigers in 2004. In response to plummeting tigers numbers across Asia, he remains the main driver of the organization. Mr. Matthews believes that wildlife tourism is a critical force in saving wildlife, gaining community support, and ensuring wilderness conservation, and is passionate about advocating and helping to develop a more responsible and sustainable approach to ensuring it's used for wildlife and habitat preservation across Indian subcontinent and other tiger-bearing landscapes. Over to you, sir.
Wow, that's a privilege. Thank you very much for the introduction. I am delighted to be on with a very esteemed panel here. Many are chums I've met. Atul, we haven't met, but I used to many of your colleagues in the past, and in fact was a great fan of Ruka and Korea in the old when I was last with you, and I feel a little bit privileged to be here because actually I haven't been back to India since COVID. COVID really stopped all my travel, and since then I've had to refocus on something here back in the UK where I'm calling from. So lovely to be asked, and thank you for calling me back. But really, Ritu is helping to drive the organization much more than I'm able to these days. So delighted to be here, but lovely to have everybody with us at some early time here in the UK. Thank you, Shusmita. It is first of all, I must take my hat off. Here we are in a situation where the latest Tiger data was we're getting back to a situation which is the same basis under which Project Tiger was founded in terms of numbers, although those numbers we can't be exactly sure of much. We can be much more so today. But it's take my hat off to the Forest Department. They've really come to the fore in this one as conservationists and preservationists to make to restore tigers in a huge way, and that is a critical component of conservation. It is not the only component, though, and the one that you talk about here is economics, really. And we slightly do ourselves down when we constantly talk about tourism, because we should really give them a little bit more credit. We should say they're visitors. They're often going for a variety of different reasons to parks and to visit nature. Don't forget, we are a human species. We originally lived and worked, and all of us, our entire ancestries and heritage has been amongst nature, with nature, involved in it. It's very much part of our lives, and we need to and we're all becoming very metropolitan, and we actually need to be enjoying and being amongst nature much more as a global society. And we're all in deep trouble for losing our biodiversity. So just calling it tourism always hurts, because the reality is it's much more than that. It is about spirituality. It's about a physical need for nature, a spiritual need for nature, call it. So whether it's people having to now pay for it, it shouldn't be just seen as a sort of exploitative. In terms of sustainability, I was delighted to be part of the journey that India's been on the last 20 years in terms of sustainability, and working with many great people, both in the sort of NGO world and tourism, but also in forest departments, to try and make sure what was happening was both economically advantageous to conservation, but wasn't destructive of its habitat and stuff. And in many parts, and indeed, I watched Pench go from a place that no one had heard about at all to a fantastic reserve that is now visited by thousands of people. Probably tens of thousands, you can tell me now, hundreds of thousands probably. And that's all happened in the last 15 years. And it's been an incredible journey. And it's allowed pension places to be valued by people, by neighbors, by people who live next door in a way that was never possible beforehand. So tourism, so visitors, for people, economics have been critical to what has gone on within the parks, and that's helped the parks maintain relations with the communities. It's done lots of things. It doesn't come without challenges. We all know those challenges. It doesn't come without downsides and stuff, but it is about managing both the upsides and the downsides. And to some extent, my concern has always been that actually we haven't been willing to grapple with the downsides. We've only sort of enjoyed the upsides on that, and that's principally because there hasn't been enough planning, of sort of pre-planning in terms of tourism and that. And I'd love to have seen much more of that in my time in India. That we actually had a much more cooperative planning process prior to tourism, or as tourism is developing, putting down land use plans around parks and stuff like that, but ensured that some of the worst aspects of tourism don't happen, and only the best are encouraged and enjoyed and done. So I am going to probably say I'm going to leave it there and let someone else take over from me. Thank you, Sushmita.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful knowledge about tiger conservation. And as you said, Forest Department plays a major role. And as you explained about the tourism plays a major role. And there are upside and downside of both the tourism impact over tiger conservation. Moving ahead, we welcome our next speaker, who is also from Tough Tigers, Srimati Ritu Makhija ma'am. She is the Director of Sustainability at Tough Tigers. She is an experienced sustainability expert in travel and tourism sector and a marketing and events professional with a passion to be the change. She is an expert with 25 years of experience in managing travel exhibitions and events at national and international level with high precision and excellence. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Sushmita, and thank you for invite me with such esteemed panel. It's really my privilege to be here, and so I guess it's really a day that we kind of celebrate the tiger. So the tiger is such a magnificent creature that I remember when I saw a tiger for the first time, I was in awe, actually in awe. But what really followed was that became the reason for me to fall in love with nature. And that's what tiger tourism really does, that you go into the forest to see the tiger in the natural habitat, and you really fall in love, and you fall in love with the nature, and you realize how important the nature is for our well-being. And I think that was brought to highlight during the pandemic times, how being around nature is so important. And it really changes the well-being of of each and every one of us. And tiger tourism has actually played a very critical role. If we look back and we see that, we've had example of Machli, the famous tigress of Ranthambore, who lived in a tiny part of the forest reserve, but she was responsible for generating so much millions and millions of revenue, for the entire park. As a result, there were people who used to come and just to look at her, and she was able to, because of the revenue which was generated, it led to building of hospitals, schools, movies, books written on her. So much revenue which was generated, which was helpful to the destination itself for developing the infrastructure. So this is what the tiger tourism really does. But what's very, very important is that how is it managed? It should be managed in a sustainable manner. I mean, these are the key factors which are very important, that we can't let the communities, be left behind, because after all, the tourism is happening in a place which is home to people. So highlighting and taking care of, ensuring that the local communities are benefited. They are first and foremost, there is a history in India that the local communities have been fearful. There is human-wildlife conflict which comes in because the tiger has a tendency to eat up their livestock. But it is as people who are we are supporting tourism, it becomes our responsibility to educate the local of the benefits of conservation. And to large extent, there's a lot of work which has already happened in India. I'm very proud to say that things have moved forward in a positive direction, and making them aware of how they can ease the human wildlife conflict. And once we have these locals on our side, they can't be better people, who can protect us from poaching and other aspects, because they know the forest much better than we do. They are the eyes of the forest, so they can really be very instrumental in playing that role, and have been also. So there are many examples which have emerged out of it. So I mean, this is my take that, you know, I think the tiger tourism is, I mean, we have a lot of potential in India, but there's still untapped potential, and there's lots and lots that which can be done, and which is happening also, you know. So we run a campaign of, Tough Tigers campaign, which has been around sustainability, and we've been doing it for 20 years. And we have, and we are a B2B campaign where we encourage our accommodations and the tour operators to support in the ethics of sustainable tourism. And I'm very happy to say some of them are doing fantastic work with their communities. So it is great to have this, and I'm thankful that, you know, I've been on this panel. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for the information, ma'am. And as you mentioned, it is an experience when you saw the tiger. And I would like to mention here, yes, we need to educate, because tiger are for the nature and nature is for the tiger. The whole ecosystem depends upon each other. So moving ahead, we will be welcoming our next speaker, who is Dr. Anish Andheriya, the president of Wildlife Conservation Trust. He is a wildlife photographer. He has photographed some of the remotest wildlife reserves in India. He has co-authored 2 books on Indian wildlife and contributed to several other national and international publications. He is a member of National Tiger Conservation Authority and both Maharashtra and Jammu and Kashmir State Boards of Wildlife. Dr. Andheriya is a member of Maharashtra Coastal Zone Management Authority and the Gujarat State Lion Conservation Society. He is also part of organizing committee of the Indian Climate Collaborative and the governing council of the Bombay Natural History Society. He has played a pivotal role in setting up Renowned Kids for Tigers initiative, a nationwide conservation education program that has reached out to millions of schools over 17 years. Over to you, sir.
Hi, Shushmita. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're audible.
Hi, Julian, Ritu, Atul. Good to share the podium with you. First of all, as Ritu said, this is a day that is celebrated in actually the awe of one of the most charismatic species that has ever walked on the planet. There are animals that have got extinct, hundreds of thousands of species, and tigers are by far the most charismatic species that has ever walked on this planet. And it is also one of the reasons why all of us are here. You know, there are so many people I know, from school children to young or youth or young professionals. They're all motivated by tigers, and in India, I think it has acted as a catalyst to conserve different habitats. And so for the audience, you know, tigers, a lot of people ask us why the tiger when there are so many other animals. The answer is the tiger is large ranging, which means that they cannot be conserved in small areas. So to conserve tigers, you need to protect large areas. The moment you protect large areas, you automatically conserve all species, and by species, I mean plant and animals, and also soil microbes in that vast area. So Project Tiger is really Project Wildlife, and it is one of the most successful conservation initiative on the planet. It was launched in 1973, and now it is in its, as you can see, 70th year. Tiger populations have more than doubled since 2006. There were only 1,411 tigers in 2006. Today, as I speak to you, it is 3,167. However, we have to also understand that not all states are doing well. In India, 6 to 7 states are responsible for contributing nearly 75% of all tigers. The remaining 12 states are underperforming. And so on a day like this, we must take an oath, and as the government and as conservationists and people who love tigers, to ensure that tigers start doing well in other states. And as I started, that tigers are an indicator species. So when tigers do well, automatically you know that the forest is doing what it did before humans walked on this planet. And so let us use tiger as an indicator to resurrect some of these ecosystems which are not doing too well in India. But we must feel proud as Indians because we have more than nearly 75% of all tigers present on Earth. There are tigers who are found in 13 countries. Today, as I speak, they are found in 10 because they are extinct from 3. Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam doesn't have tigers anymore. The remaining, 10 countries, of which India is one, India has nearly 70 to 75% of all tigers. This is largely because of multiple reasons. One is because of people like Atul who is sitting there. He's part of the forest department. He works with the Maharashtra Forest Department, but there is forest department across the country. They have played exceedingly good. They've done a great job against the flow of the events because human population has gone up to 1.4 billion. There is crisis as far as water goes. There is a lot of inequity. There is a lot of poverty. People have to subsist on wildlife, on habitats that support wildlife to stay alive. So there are so many people who are dependent on India's forest. Nearly 300 million people are dependent on forests currently. In tiger reserves alone, there are 3 million people. So India has the best tiger population despite having 3 million people. And so this brings me to the second most important thing, and that is the culture of India. So we cannot ignore, even the government should not ignore that their success is riding on the back of a culture that considers wildlife as part of their own systems. We don't think of wilderness as something outside of us. We are very much part and parcel. I have been witness to situations where people have died because of tiger. A tiger has killed a human being, and the mother of that human being is actually cursing the son who's died, and telling him, why the hell did you go to the forest at 4 in the morning? Nobody out there was wanting to kill the tiger. They were trying to find reasons as to why a tiger attacked a human being in the forest. And so this is extremely unique, and I can highlight that there is no country on this planet that can boast of this kind of a culture. And that's also one of the main reasons why India has done well in not only protecting tigers, but also other large mammals like the elephant, the rhino, the Asiatic lion, right? They are also doing well. Now coming to tourism, there is no industry that can go hand in hand with conservation. Tourism, if run in a ethical, in a curtailed, in a sustainable manner, will not only help sustain large mammals, but will also give several livelihood opportunities to people, to these millions of people who share their backyards and are paying the opportunity cost of living alongside mammals. And so we cannot ever overstate the importance of tourism. There are several success stories that have emerged out of the country. I can quote of Tadoba. Tadoba Tiger Reserve is in Maharashtra today as we speak. There are 21 different gates from where tourists can enter. And of these, 17 are in the buffer zone. So for audience again, tiger reserves are designed in such a way that you have a core in the center and there is a ring of forest around it, which is a multiple use areas, which means those areas that is a ring is called the buffer zone, also has people. So there are 17 routes that start in the buffer zone, and the money from there goes directly to the villages that operate those buffer zones. There is another good example in Satpura Tiger Reserve where the tourism is diversified, which means it's not just a jeep safari tourism. There are people who can walk into the forest because, see, I am a conservationist, but my training initially was in fluid mechanics. But my passion for wildlife was ignited by the fact that I saw animals on foot. I am fortunate that I'm in Bombay. We have a national park called Sanjay Gandhi National Park. And as a child, I used to go there often. And I've seen leopards on foot so many times. And that is what changed my mind. And so walking into the forest is a most beautiful experience. And we must also not only look at tourism, which is jeep laden, but we should also think of many different types of tourism. So Satpura, there are people who can actually canoe, they go on boats to watch birds. Then you can trek into the forest. You can stay inside the heart of Satpura Tiger Reserve overnight. You could also go on buffer tourism. There is night tourism possible there. There is also tourism which is, so safaris are open all throughout the year in the buffer zone. This is again something that is innovative. There is night safari. People have started, going to night safaris to watch wildlife in the night. Sometimes you don't see anything because obviously you can't really show torches everywhere. But the experience of the forest in the night is a different shift altogether. And so these are things that India has done, and we must spread this into other states as well, so that people don't think of wildlife as a problem. They think of wildlife as a means of earning livelihoods. And remember, you can earn livelihoods from wildlife in two ways. One is by killing them and selling them in the international or the illegal and doing illegal trade with them. And second is to be involved in tourism so that you can earn from it. Animals can be sustained and you can also be sustained in return. So, and as a person who works on conservation, I feel that it's all about economics. As long as a living tiger or a living animal can help you make more profits than a dead animal, that species will survive. And so we have to find ways of encouraging tourism that can plow money back into the local communities. For me, the best tourism facility is the one where the lion's share of profit is made by people who live in that forest and not people like us who live back in Bombay and Delhi and run that hotel. So you could run a hotel, but 80% of your money should actually go back into the communities. I'll take some more questions later on, but this is my 2 bits on tigers and tourism.
Thank you so much, sir. And you also mentioned the geographical distribution of tigers in India as well as worldwide. It is so important for us to know about that. And even you mentioned about the types of tiger tourism which can be carried out to help the local communities as well. So moving ahead, we will welcome our last speaker, none other than Dr. Atul Devkar, Assistant Conservator of Forest in Pench Tiger Reserve. He was recently bestowed with the Century Asia Wildlife Award for his extensive study on the elusive wild buffaloes, a critical endangered mammal on the verge of extinction. Its genetically purebred is only found in Kolamarka Conservation Reserve in Kamlapur Range in Gadchiroli. He has written 2 books, Treasure of Kolamarka and Butterflies of Pench Tiger Reserve. Mr. Devkar's research on vultures has appeared in well-known journals. He has also identified and photographed some rare butterflies and added 3 species to the checklist of Central India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, thank you. It's really proud to be share the dais with all these dignitaries, Julian, Ritu ma'am, and my conservation partner, our Anisha. So he knows what wild buffalo and vultures are doing in Gadchiroli and all the parts of Vidar area. So what he explained actually, as we know, tiger conservation is expensive and expansive. It needs a lot of money. As a PM manager, I know how tiger reserve run. And as he explained, we start with the core area, then we ask for buffer area, then we extend it to eco-sensitive zone, then we talk about corridor. So this is expansive because as a tiger are long-ranging animals, we need a lot of area. So as we talk about a tiger reserve, there is core, there is buffer, and we start with eco-sensitive zone. So there are so many people, so many communities are there in the buffer area whose complete dependence on the forest area. As we talk about tiger, so we should talk about the 3 T's. There are trees, then tigers and tribals. Most of our tiger population is an around tribal population. So their dependence on forest is a known fact since the long era. So what Anisha says that they should be the beneficiary of tiger conservation and not the victims. We should talk about the benefit sharing to the local peoples. Tourism industry is what we can say there are forest dependence with extract use, just what we can say the tendu patta or the mahua flowers, which were collected from the central Indian landscape and most of the Indian forests. These are the extractive use of forest. But tourism or sustainable tourism is a non-extractive use of forest use. So we should promote this non-extractive use with all the ethical manners, what we are listed for the sustainable tourism. So sustainable tourism actually with reference with the ecotourism, it comes with conservation, education, and livelihood. The conservation efforts are with the local supports. So if we generate a goodwill with locals about tiger, then only they will help us for the conservation of tigers. Because if we share the most of the benefit, what Anish said, the lion's share of benefit should be with the local people. If we share such benefit with the local people, they will help us to protect the tiger. It's not just the forest department who have saved all these tiger, all these treasures. These are the local people who have served for the conservation of all these habitats. So the most of the share should be with local people. So we, as a conservation manager, I see tourism as a tool for decreasing the dependency on forest. If what we say the 1.4 billion people are here in India, and the most of the dependent, what we can say the 3 million, but as of we know, the Forest Survey of India have published the report, there is 85 billion tons of fodder and fuel wood are extracted every year from the forest. So if we try to manage these things, if we try to minimize the pressure on forest land, we are conserving the tiger. So here in buffer area, what Anish sir or the NTCA guidelines are saying, there is Tiger Conservation Foundation, which helps to recycle the tourism money for the benefit of locals and to promote the tourism. Yeah, it's of course it's with the ethical, all the manners and everything what we have to follow for the ecotourism. We are trying to developing skill development programs, livelihood generation programs with all the money what we are getting from the tourism. So as in Pench, we started a Kursapar gate. Kursapar was area, they were engaged in illegal fishing and everything, and most of the villagers were the known forest criminals, or what we can say. But when we start a tourism gate in that area, they shifted to the legal way of earning. They are now our guides, they are gypsy drivers. We help them to purchase their own gypsy. So the most of the tourism money goes to the such villagers. Now they are helping us for the tiger conservation, who were depend on the forest land, who were encroaching forest land or taking benefits of forest land. They are now helping us for the conservation of tiger. They are talking about the, what you can say them, they are now our informers. If someone is doing some illegal things or something, because forest department have only few rangers, but when they ask us about what you can say the illegal things happening in and around the area, they are alarming us that, oh, something fishy is going around, we should be alarming about this. So these things are helping us for managing the tiger reserve in a better way. So I must say the sustainable tourism is a tool for tiger conservation. Of course, tiger conservation need all set of all strategies, plan, everything, what ways. But this can be a tool for sustainable tourism for tiger conservation, as local people will work as a social fencing for a tiger reserve. As in India, there are most of the forest area is right burdened. We have to allow the rights of people, because these are tribal people who are living in that area since long ago. So right settlement is also important, and generating the non-extractive use of forest is the better thing to do, as what we say, there is no any industry which can go in hand with conservation. But tourism, what the sustainable tourism report also says, that 1 million investment in the manufacturing or something, they will generate the 45 jobs. While in tourism sector, 1 million investment will generate 78 jobs. So it's double than what other industries will do. So it's better to go for sustainable tourism, which help for conservation of forest, and that to tiger. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As you have mentioned, the tiger conservation wholly depends on not only the forest department, but also the local communities. And it is important, like the tourism and tiger conservation goes hand in hand. So as we come to the closing of the first part of the session, the floor is open for the discussion and also for the audience. So if they want to ask any question, they can raise their hands on the Zoom call, and also the YouTube live, they can comment the question in the comments.
At all. I'll start with a question. I'd love to get a little bit of feedback from your good self in terms of Pench, both the Maharashtra, Patna and Madhya Pradesh. But how is Pench doing? What are the numbers like? How's I know that tourism has arrived on both 2 or 3 sides, and places like Rukar we've been brought into the fold a number of years ago now. I'd love to know a little bit more information about that and how that's been taken forward.
Yeah, in Pench now we have opened some buffer gates also. We have introduced nature trails and camping sites also. We are trying to do the boating in the reservoir also. Yeah, and the tiger population is increased 3-fold. As 2008, there were only 10 tigers. Now we have more than 45 tigers. Yeah, and what the conservation biologists say, we have 20 breeding females in Pench. So this is a feasible population for tigerism, and we are trying to conserve the corridors. One of the Mogarkasa Conservation Reserve adjoining to the Pench is also declared. So this will be another site for Pench tiger to be have their sink. And some major things that happened, just widening of NH7 was there, but with all the due mitigation measures, which helps to try to use the corridors for tiger. So we are having a mitigation structure along the NH7. We have declared eco-sensitive zone also, and now the MP Pench and Maharashtra Pench are doing well for working as a landscape and trying to check all the illegal things around the tiger reserve. And about tourism, yeah, it's getting much potential, and we have shipped all gypsies and everything. They are doing good, and I hope we have applied for the top tigers also. So you may know the little bit facts about the what tiger reserve have and what we have changed for this. Yeah.
I was particularly interested in the sort of Rukard Kurai area, and I presume that's to some extent what you've looked at in terms of introducing tourism and stuff there. I knew that had happened. Has that been very successful in terms of the communities themselves and things?
Yeah, Rukard is from Madhya Pradesh side, I think, and we are working for Maharashtra side. But of course, in Maharashtra Pench, we don't have so much resorts around that. So we have tried to help the local peoples to construct homestays. We have smaller resorts, but not as what we have in Turia or Madhya Pradesh side. So it's better for us to have better area to help more the locals, not just to the resort owners.
Julian, the answer to your question is that Rukard is doing well. In fact, it's almost 300 square kilometers of forest that is now under the control of the field director. So it's in unified control. Otherwise, it's in the development corporation. So there was planned logging that was happening there. it continues, but now it's also taking in tourists. There is tourism that's happening. And in fact, tiger sightings have also gone up in that area. And it's in fact, the habitat is, if you look at Rukkhad, it's undulating, and it's in fact far more, for me, as a naturalist, far more beautiful than the open areas of the national park. So yeah. So as Atul mentioned, in a lot of tiger reserves, slowly, and I'm talking about well-governed states. This is again not across the country, but in Karnataka, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, we have seen that they have either expanded the buffer zone or added some conservation reserves along the corridor so that they act as pit stops. So the corridors have been strengthened by those states, and the result is in front of you. Tiger numbers are doing well. There is breeding population outside tiger reserves as well.
Yeah. No, very fantastic.
Also,
Sorry.
yes, sir. I just wanted to add up. We have a question from the YouTube chat box that mentioned, how can the public support tiger conservation initiatives in India, both locally and globally?
Who do you want that question? Who do you want?
Anyone, sir?
First, can I add? I mean, of course, the others can support it. So first and foremost, I feel how one can support is by being a responsible traveler. You know, one needs to know what are the ethics when you go into a park. You know, and we have cases of over tourism happening, people making a lot of noises, you know, when they go to the park. So you have to understand, when you're going to the parks, it is very important that you maintain silence and you maintain distance from the animals, you know, and so it's being a responsible traveler, I think, is the beginning of conservation. When you're going to the parks, you're also, what's happening is, you know, tourism is one of the things which amounts to huge consumption of resources in a particular destination. So being particular about being you're not overusing or conscious of the resources, like, you know, towards energy, towards water, towards, you know, towards the resources of the destination, that's also being responsible. You know, so being a responsible traveler is the beginning. Rest, I will please ask others to support in for this.
So I would say there is no question that people have to be responsible, but sometimes the systems are also not conducive to being responsible. So it is the responsibility of the state governments, also the tour operators and the hoteliers, to create an environment, because tourists will not demand as long as it's not, if it's available, then they want it. For instance, if you have you have a property and then you have in a place which is dry, you have a swimming pool there. So those kind of things, and TOF, therefore, when they certify, they also look at all these various things, which means whether you're using renewable energy, whether you're recycling plant matter so that it can be converted into manure. What are you doing with the solid waste? Whether your boundaries of your hotel are open to wildlife, whether you are playing loud music or not, or air conditioners there or not. So I know of some extremely good quality properties that don't have air conditioners in some of the hottest areas, and they are doing exceedingly well, and more people are feeling conscious. So people will follow if the systems are in place. So we need to create those systems, definitely. Definitely people who go once you are there as a tourist, you should, as I said, diversify, which means not just focus on safaris. You could go for a village walk. You could spend time in the village and see the village lives, try and see what artisans there are, or try and support some of those people, because the livelihoods are, not everybody can become a guide or a driver in a tiger reserve, because there is a limit to how many people can go in. At the max, you will have about 200 people who can guide and 200 drivers, but there are many, many more people. For instance, in the buffer zone of Kanha alone, there are 120,000 people. In Tadoba alone, there are 90,000 people living in the buffer zone. And so we need to do much more. Therefore, tourists should also try and spend time, see how some of the monies can go to people who are not directly connected to the tiger reserve, but who have either some, maybe organic food, buy certain things that they make locally, and then also try and form that linkage. So people who are in the business community, when they go there, there is what is important is a forward and backward linkages, which means the people who produce good food or honey or whatever it is, but they don't have direct connections with the market. So if you have the know-how, you should try and put a cooperative in place. That means you have to put some more effort. And mind you, once you start doing this, you enjoy your trip much more, because then you are seeing a tiger, but you also somewhere know that you are contributing to that, the survival of the tiger and the people around it. And that's a far more holistic experience. And this is true globally. So I'm not just bifurcating local and global tourism. And in fact, India, one thing that I'm sure everybody here will agree, that in the 1980s and 90s, nearly 80% or 75% of all tourists were in tiger reserves, especially, were foreign tourists. And now I would say nearly 95% of tourists are local, which means they come from India. And so there is huge power. However, we must not ignore international tourists, which means we have to create. Why have they stopped coming in? There could be some reasons. So we have to address that so that they feel like they go to Africa. Everybody wants to go to Africa, but the kind of forest experience that India can provide is unparalleled. So you have all these animals, you have most beautiful forests, you have so many different types of habitat. And so we are somehow underselling our wildlife. And when I say underselling is in terms of tourism. And so we need to really improve the infrastructure. Once that happens, automatically you will have more people coming. And when more people come in, obviously there will be much more money going into the local communities.
Correct, sir. Also, as we move ahead with the Q&A session, so I have a question to Mr. Matthews. What are some of the most significant challenges facing tiger conservation efforts today, and how your organization addressing them? TOF Tigers, how does it address?
So it's a very good question, and I should really ask Ritu to do this, as she's sort of director of the organization now, and I think that's probably hers. I'm step back from actually sort of day-to-day running. So Ritu, do you want to take that forward in terms of what TOFT is doing and how it's doing it in SIX? I think that's probably a question for your good self.
Yeah, okay, sure. Thank you, Julian. So the basic thing is that we know tiger tourism has a lot of potential, and we feel that potential hasn't really reached its optimum. So what really needs is there has to be a bridging of gap between the travel agents, between the accommodations, between the local communities, what we say as partnership goals, which needs to combine together, especially, the SDG 17 talks about partnership goals, and seeing India as one destination where we can really help, local communities benefit. Right now the benefit, like I think Anish also said, is benefit is happening, but it's not helping the locals derive as much benefit as it is deriving the other stakeholders, probably people who have hotels and other major investments. So how to really empower those people who are in the destinations, to really feel the pride, of the culture they have, giving them more experiences. It should not be a very safari-centric trip which needs to be there. I think this has already been spoken about by Anish as well. That when a tourist is going to a national park, the interaction with the locals must be real. Because they are the people who make the destination come alive. So that kind of a effort, and we are trying to build in that kind of a thing, build up with communities and trying to, build those gaps in between and see how that the communities really can benefit. I mean, it's still work in progress, which is happening, but our focus is really to help empower the communities and help them come up, in the destinations.
Yes, sure, ma'am. As we move ahead, I have a question to Mr. Andheria regarding do you engage with the government authorities to advocate for policies that promote sustainable tourism and protect tiger habitat?
Yeah, very much. In fact, when you do conservation, you have to interact with all constituencies. You cannot just look at research. Obviously, all that you say should be based on good quality data. So you have to collect data on the ground. Then you formulate a roadmap based on data that you find, socioeconomic data, socio-cultural data, ecological data, data on the densities of wildlife, data on the lives that the forest guards have in the forest, because they are the ones who are protecting it. The watchers that are temporary laborers and the forest guards are the fulcrum for conservation, but do they get the facility? So once you have that holistic data set, then you have to go and eventually it is both the state and the central subject. There are funds coming in from the center, and the state also puts money. Largely salaries come from the state. And so you have to go and talk to both the state and the center to see where the policies can be framed better. See, India has some of the best policies. The acts, the Wildlife Protection Act, the Forest Conservation Act are extremely good and strong. However, you need constant tweaking of many of these policies so that they move ahead with time. And so a lot of research that we do eventually translates into recommendations to the government. And when it is backed with data, the government often accepts what you say. And you can be part of several committees. So we are on state boards of 4 states. And so when you are there, then the chairman of the board is the chief minister. And so you are directly interacting with the chief minister to encourage the state to do things which are right by not just conservation, but also development. One has to understand that for India to conserve wildlife, people have to be happy. Unhappy people will not conserve wildlife. So you have to allow development in a way which doesn't impinge upon the last remaining forest. And if you look at protected area network of India, there are more than 900 protected areas, but together it is about 5% of India. And that 5% of India is providing water and also most of the oxygen that you and I are breathing. Also food, because whatever floods that move, the rivers that originate from there are taking soil nutrients and depositing it on farmlands. So the forest is actually running the entire food bowl of India. And so unless we respect that and we expand it beyond the boundaries of protected areas, India will have a crisis in the making. It's not just the tiger numbers can go up, but does that translate to more water for the farmer? Does that translate to better organic food for the people or cleaner air? So it is a very holistic thing. So unless you look at it from the policy side, you will only be scratching the surface and nothing really will happen on the ground. You'll have some small successes in a park or two, but what is needed is at the national level. So I keep talking about well-performing and underperforming. We have to basically incentivize people and states that perform well, and also somehow enforce the same kind of roadmaps on other states who are not doing too well.
Correct, sir. Thank you so much. I have a question to Mr. Devkar. As you can share any example of successful sustainable tourism initiative that has been positively impacted tiger conservation, and also how we can educate tourists and tour operators for conserving tiger population. Any example if you could share?
Yeah. In Maharashtra, we developed a hospitality training center with help of PACE, Pratham Arora Center for Education. This all center is run on the tourism money, what we have received from the tiger tourism. So there, on zero money from the beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are all tribal youths from the buffer area of all periods, just Pench, Tadoba, Nevegaon, Nagzira tiger reserves. So we train them for hospital training, and we have 100% placement for them. So right now we have placed more than 1,800 youth of the buffer area to minimum 3-star properties in and around PA and outside PA also. So it helps to sustain the family of their youth. So they're decreasing the pressure on forest land. They are helping to upgrade the standard of living, and it helps to upgrade the value of their villages. So it helps to minimize the pressure on forest land. So they are helping for tiger conservation. So what we have said, the fuel wood consumption. If you are having a minimum guarantee of some rupees, so you will not go for forest land for a fuel wood. You will go to the LPG, or you will use a more sustainable way for the consumption of them. So minimizing the use of fuel wood is also helping for tiger conservation or the forest conservation. So a placement of more than 1,800 students from the Eastern Vidarbha landscape are helping more than the 200 villages for them. So this example actually helps to the upgrade the life of buffer area people, to use upgrade the standard of living for them. And about tiger conservation, so what we are talking everything about is until we are knowing the monetary value of a tiger reserve, then only a government or the outside people can know about a tiger reserve. If we are breathing oxygen, but we are not paying for that. Until what we have said in Mumbai or somewhere, for conserving Tansa or any reservoir, if a forest department charges a single penny for a liter of water, then maybe forest department have a budget more than what other governments may have. So if as these are the indirect benefits what we are using and everything, so developing a sustainable tourism will help buffer people also, local peoples, and the outside people who are using the all PAs or the forest areas for their own use. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also, I would like to mention some of the question has been asked in the chat section. And thank you to Mr. Andheria, who has been answering to all the questions, such as the permission to access from the buffer areas to the tiger conservation area, and also what are the scopes to hire any young hospitality profession. Yes, they are trained, and however, not all states are doing it, but some intensity. If anybody has any questions to ask, the floor is open for the discussion.
I would like to ask Anish, if I may, and I'd love to explore the idea that there's sort of the performing reserves over the non-performing, and where, because don't forget, at a certain stage in India, when I started in the beginning of the century, they were all underperforming, and certainly we're going to lose our tigers. What to you is the difference now between those two separate sets? And I know it's almost divided in a straight line down India. I'd love to ask you specifically, because you know so many of those different parks, where the change will happen and how that can be catalyzed, because of course it's happened and it's been catalyzed in many other areas. What are the challenges, issues that still confront this?
Thanks, Julian. It's an important question, and the answer to this is quite counterintuitive, actually. If
I'm sure.
Better performing states, they're economically far more stable. So in those underperforming states, there is employment issue. There is a lot of forests, but people don't have any means of livelihoods. So therefore, their dependence on the forest is much more. So if you look at Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, or Karnataka, which are performing really well, the people have access to better livelihood options. Whereas you look at Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, parts of Bihar, even Telangana, it's really mostly agrarian, and that too with climate change, with the vagaries of weather, the yield is constantly going down. There is a lot of losses. So people are under tremendous stress. And when communities are stressed, they have to go in for free fodder, they have to go in for free food. And that's the reason you have people going into those forests. So the first thing is to see how the economics of the states are improved. The infrastructure, definitely where it's needed, should be improved. The businesses, in terms of if it's manufacturing, then how can it be done in certain cities? So the cities have to be really uplifted when it comes to opportunities for people, because people, whether you are in Maharashtra or you're living in a remote place in Arunachal Pradesh, everybody has an aspiration to earn a living which can take them to a comfortable lifestyle. Everybody has access to internet or television. So the aspirations are high, but the government is not able to keep in pace with that thing. So most people think that development will actually destroy wildlife, but you will see, and you can actually do your math. Development in a certain zone will benefit eventually, because there will be better education, there will be better health, there will be better road network. Once that happens, the access to all these, and people can be free willing, they can really access it. People don't want to live in the jungle today. If you go and look at the generation, so if there are people who are shepherds in India, the cattle population in India is probably the highest on earth, right? But if you ask a young person who is 15-year-old or a 18-year-old in any of these villages which has thousands of cattle, they say, I don't want to do this job. My father has done it all his life, but I want a job in the city. I don't want to be here. Similarly, so therefore there is that urge to move out. Some states are not able to do it. So the states that have done well also have done well in providing voluntary relocation packages. So Maharashtra, for instance, has done exceedingly well in providing a just voluntary relocation package to the families who want to willingly move out of the cores or sometimes even the buffer zones of tiger reserves. Madhya Pradesh has really done it. Satpura Tiger Reserve, which is in near Hoshangabad, has been able to move out nearly 50 villages in the last 6-7 years. And the Tiger Reserve, the first camera trapping, that is work that was done by my organization, there were 18 tigers in 2012-13. Today, Satpura has more than 55 tigers. We also discovered what the Eurasian otter, which probably was there in the past, but it was in the higher streams. But once the disturbance moved, they have started coming in, and we got pictures, and that species was not known from Central India at that point in time. Okay, so that voluntary relocation package needs to be offered to people who want to take it. Nobody can be forcibly moved. Their rights have to be settled, and then this should be done. I think also the forest department, I mean, I don't want to name those states because there are several. The watchers are people who are on daily wage. Why do they need watcher? Because there are vacancies on the forest guards level. Why are there vacancies? Because the finance department of the state is not providing the money for the forest department to hire staff. So when you, as a field director, if I was a field director and I have a park which is about 800 square kilometers, but I have forest guards which are only about 25, it is impossible to protect that forest. And so they are so demotivated that they, even if they are there, they will not be able to do anything. So the field director has to go in and hire people on daily wages. These are people from the villages. And so then a field director will hire about 150 to 200 people for different jobs. They also, work with the forest guards to patrol. They will firefight. They will help build roads and a lot of other things, right? However, there are states that don't give salaries. These are salaries meaning what? Daily wages, hardly 350 rupees. Okay. What is 350 rupees? It's about $4 to $5. Okay. That salary, they sometimes don't get for 4 to 6 months. So the people who are responsible for protecting the hearts and lungs of the country, that is the forest and other ecosystems, are not getting salaries on time. And these are the underperforming states I am talking. The reason why these good states, that good meaning where the tigers have done well, is because the forest department has not defaulted on salaries. How can you do that? An officer like a field director, if I was a field director, I'll get my salary on time. But the guy who is earning $3 a day will not get his salary for 6 months, and he lives in the same village. What is the incentive for that man to protect the forest when the forest officers are not able to pay the salaries, it's not because they don't want to pay, it's at the level of the state that there are these problems. And I think that's a very, very big thing, because then if I am working and animals, of course, I'm protecting, but the animals don't know that. So they can attack me. I'm away from my family. I don't know how my kids are studying. I don't see my family on time. I have my old aging mother or father, whatever it is. So that itself is stressful. You are also cooking. That food is also your responsibility in the jungle. So without salaries, if I work tomorrow, a poacher can easily give me some small amount and I can pass on information about a tiger or about an elephant that frequents a certain area, and that animal will be hunted down. So first is to make sure that you fill up all the vacancies that is there. You have to pay salaries on time. You should make the watchers permanent, because temporary, nobody feels secure and on temporary jobs. You must give them facilities, all the equipment that is required. It's not expensive at all. If you look at the budget of the state, this is not even 1%. And I'll give you mathematics of, if you look at the amount of money that the governments are investing on protecting India's tiger reserves, 1 rupee of investment is giving a return of somewhere between 230 to 540 rupees. 1 rupee investment on management of parks, which is salaries, all those things, is giving you returns of 230 to 540. Can you tell me another business that can give you that kind of profit? This profit is in the form of ecosystem services, your oxygen, your water, your soil, the pollination, the seed dispersal. So this is all coming to the poorest of the poor for no cost. And so we have to start looking at those, and if required, we have to charge a cess on the water that comes out, because all our lakes, most of our rivers, 600 rivers, Julian, are either originating or are being fed by tiger-bearing forest in India.
Of course.
Which means, and more than 60% of Indians are farmers. More than 30% of Indians are dependent on fish, either on the coast or in the rivers. So nearly 90% of Indians are still dependent on natural resources. How can you not put more money in those ecosystems which are generating the water and oxygen for all those 90% of 1.4 billion Indians? So there is some problem in the math that we are doing. There's a problem in the way the GDP is being calculated. GDP is only exchange of money. We must start looking at GDP as what have you liquidated to have the growth in your income. So unless you take into account, so how can a balance sheet actually work if you are only looking at what you have gained without looking at what had to be what had to be liquefied, which means how many forests had to be cut to build roads, how many forests had to be cut for mining, what has happened to the river, the barrages, all that. If you look at the negatives, then you will understand that the profit is really not much. So by destroying the environment, you will know that the profits are going to be in the long run always less. So it's not a business sense for you. But the moment the GDP calculation is wrong, so you feel that liquidation of forests is the way in which economy can be fueled. That's not how it is. So we have to have realistic models. So this is not just about just giving salaries to people. This is much more and much bigger than that. The first thing is to understand that economy is sitting on a bedrock of ecology.
Correct, sir. I would like to.
Ecology.
Sorry, sir, to cut you, but
economy. No, I'm done.
Yes, sir. Sorry to cut you, as we have a time constraint and there are a lot of questions coming in. But unfortunately, we have to come to the conclusion of the webinar. And on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all our speakers and our participants for sparing their time for sustainable growth. I thank all the speakers for sharing your valuable expertise and insights during the webinar. Your contribution has enriched our understanding for tiger conservation and sustainable tourism. We extend our sincere gratitude to the speakers for their inspiring talk on tiger conservation. Their passion and knowledge has left a lasting impact on our audience, for sure. A heartfelt thank you to our esteemed speakers for their valuable time and dedication to promoting sustainable tourism for tiger conservation. Your commitment to wildlife preservation is truly commendable. I would I would request all the audience to turn on their camera so that we can have a group photo. I would request all the participants kindly open your camera for the group photo. Mr. Vikas, is the group photo done?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I would like to mention, stay tuned for our next episode by following us on the social media accounts. And thank you so much for the participating and for the 2 days webinar. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, Shushmita. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Very